You must be reading my mind. I was going to say, the next question was, have you seen into the future?
Yes, and probably in my 30s, I started getting visitations from angelic beings. But just jumping back a second, when I was in the military, I had a series of OBEs as well. Those were my first real proper consciously aware OBEs. I felt I was being shown things, and that's how it started. I mean, it gets much bigger than that. We haven't even started. I wouldn't recall telling my parents, Paul, I'll be honest. I remember there must have been 6 occasions where I had these apocalyptic visions.
I'm not asleep. Obviously, I've just woken up. I've walked to the bathroom. I've come back. And I get in bed, and when I close my eyes, that's when these, what I call visions, take place. This kind of lucid dream state occurs, and the light enters.
Yeah.
What are we dealing with there, Jed?
So let's just go back to saying astral projection is an occultist thing. The terminology is occultist. I could feel everything that was going on with
They wanted you to know that fear and trauma.
Yes. Well said.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Truth Proof, to what is a special edition today, if you like, a pre-record, which we don't normally do. They're normally all live. And today I'm talking to Gerard M. Pratt, author of the book Astral Traveller, a new book. And I'm really looking forward to what this man's got to share with us. And let's just jump straight into it. I'll bring Gerard in now.
Hello,
hi, Gerard. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome, my friend. And you corrected me earlier when we spoke prior to doing this, and it's Jed. And I believe there's a subtitle to the book as well. Yeah,
it's The Astral Traveller, Guardians of Light and Shadow. And it's been a project in the making over the last 2 to 3 years. But it's quite in-depth. So the book predominantly is about astral projection. So it obviously teaches astral projection, but with lessons and various tutorials. But the heartbeat of the book really is my experiences, which includes 69 personal journals. We've got 60 odd illustrations, and it moves into the various modalities that are connected to astral projection, which I believe is the most important psychic ability that we have, because not only does it bring on a variety of psychic abilities just by astral projection, by being in resonance with that energy body and being able to leave the body, brings on a various range of clairvoyant and other psychic abilities.
Well, do you know, Jed, you've actually got me straight away. Because this is about you, but I've got one experience which I want to talk about either during this interview or at another interview. So I think because we've got loads of time, we can do 1, 2, or 3 of these if you like. So, a couple more at a later date. So start at the beginning. Where did this begin for you?
Okay, well, it began at childhood because I was having OBEs as a child, but I didn't realize they were OBEs. I found myself in dark voids floating around. And then it was a series of, so we say precognition or visions, which were apocalyptic, seeing the end of the earth and the fact that humanity had wiped itself out. So this was around the age of 3, 4, 5. And at the time, there was a number of these, but I didn't realize I was out the body because nobody in the house knew what was going on. And then I had a craft experience when I was about 7. I seen a metallic silver disc-shaped craft flying over the home in Liverpool, about 20 meters in diameter. I seen it for about 2 to 3 minutes, and I banged on the next door's door where my friend lived, and they started laughing and said, "Don't be silly." But I know what I saw. I remember telling people in school the next day. So there was those kind of experiences. But then after the age of 7, and 7 is an age where they say they get you before the age of 7. In other words, not get you in a negative way, but to open up, your senses to what's around us.
Bring you aware of
our awareness that'll be used later in life. So I didn't really have a great deal. I had a very normal life then. And probably in my 30s, I started getting visitations from angelic beings. And one particular one was an angelic looking male in a white outfit, like a toga sort of outfit, who took me from the bed in the middle of the night and by the hand. And as soon as I touched this being, I should say, he was a person. I felt like a oneness that I'd never felt in my life, a love for the universe. And then he took me by the hand and floated me out of the house. And we went on a journey. And I can't remember really what happened on the journey. And then there was a lot of visitations from deceased loved ones. And by the age of late 30s, I started seeing a lot of deceased loved ones in dreams. And then it started a lot of lucid experiences where I'd be in particular places, learning how to move through walls, how to spin and control my movements in the non-physical body.
Is this a journey of self-learning then, or are you? And I want to jump back to childhood in a moment, if that's okay. But is this a journey of self-learning, or are you being nurtured and taught by this angelic being?
I was being nurtured and taught without knowing what was going on. But just jumping back a second, when I was in the military, I had a series of OBEs as well. Those are my first real proper consciously aware OBEs. So they've been there, you know, as a child during my time in the military. And as I say, late 30s, things really started kicking in. But I felt I was being guided because kept finding myself in particular locations, and I'd just be there learning how to move. And then I felt I was being shown things, and that's how it started. I mean, it gets much bigger than that. We haven't even started yet.
Well, that's why I said, you know, initially, and I could tell when we spoke briefly the other day that we'll not cover this in an hour. We might need 3 or 4 hours, but you know, for this one, so I'm keen because I'm keen to take you to childhood, if you don't mind, because I want to know as a 5, 6, 7-year-old child how you dealt with those experiences. Did you deal with them as in telling parents or close friends?
I don't even recall telling my parents, Paul. I'll be honest. I remember there must have been 6 occasions where I had these apocalyptic visions.
That's what I wanted to get at. You wouldn't have even known they were apocalyptic visions, would you?
No, but I remember sat crying on the stairs, wondering why humanity had done it, why they'd finally done it. And I remember I was the last person, last consciously aware person to be in existence, and that's what the visions felt. But I don't know where they came from until I started attending my first UFO conferences, and we spoke about I think it was John Mack's book Abduction. He spoke about these visions that extraterrestrials, supposed extraterrestrials, put in the mind of children about apocalyptic visions. And that's when I thought, oh my God, you know, is that what I received? Because I've got no explanation for why I was receiving the visions.
And I love the fact that even now, years and years later, you're openly saying, I've got no answers for why I received the visions, because I haven't, for the things that happened to me. I don't have an answer, but they're obviously putting you on the path and guiding you somewhere. And
I think the craft experience made me think it was connected to ufology, to be honest with you. If it wasn't for the craft experience, and why I've seen it, because nobody else seen the craft, you know, and I thought about that in my 30s, and that's when I got into ufology, was because of that craft experience. So I started reading the books that you probably read too, you know, your Nick Pope books and those kind of things, and the John Mack abduction one. Although I must say I've never been abducted as such, but we'll come on to that later, because as an astral traveller, you don't sort of get abducted. These things aren't reported because you know the experience, but we'll get on to that.
Kind of bear in mind that I want to do, providing you've got the time, I want to do 2 or 3 of these, so that we can work through this. So there's no urgency to get to the end of it in this session.
Okay.
And so have all of the experiences, Jed, been kind of euphoric and uplifting?
Yes. Like I say, when that angelic being visited me when I was, in fact, I was late 20s, early 30s when that happened. I'd never experienced that feeling at the time, and I have since, and I can go into that later. But when you make contact with a higher dimensional being, you're flooded with serenity, with love, and you suddenly understand what it's all about. And I can't translate that into words now because it's impossible to do.
Yeah.
The feeling is, and you will wake up crying. You will have tears.
I get it. Honestly, if I were to say to you, and I don't profess to have had your experiences, but I know from what I'm listening to, and I've not had anything like your experiences, but you will have laid in bed or in some kind of seclusion, because it's usually when you're in your own space. That's when I've experienced this, and you will have felt that the most brilliant light pouring into your head. Am I wrong? We've never spoke about this.
You're bang on the nail.
And you've never seen a light brighter in your life. It's the most brilliant phosphorus fluorescent light you've ever seen, and it feels, to me, it feels like an egg timer, and it's pouring into my mind. And
that's right, yeah, that's how it feels.
But it's your show. Carry on.
No, but I mean, so you know, those that when it started opening up, I think because I'd left the military, I had more time on my hands, and I started having these experiences where I believe in the body, but I hadn't self-initiated OBEs at that time. It was gifted, although I do believe that it can be taught to a certain level. But we're dealing with multiple lives here. We're dealing with karmic issues. We're dealing with evolution of soul. So that's what they've told me. So, you know, I mean, I'm going to jump the gun here. They've told me this is life 759 for me, 759. So if you're dealing with those kind of things, you've got to imagine that yeah, okay, progression will move through lifetimes. But, you know, as far as I understand, it's something that can be learned, but maybe not. It's spiritually guided too. So maybe you can go so far with it. But anyway, I'm digressed here. So I had these experiences, and they slowly evolved to a point where certain guides introduced themselves to me. So after numerous visits to deceased loved ones and things like that, I was starting to find my way around different dimensional levels. I started to get out of bed and look back and see my body sleeping next to my wife. And I call it this in the book. This chapter is called the honeymoon period, because the honeymoon period represented a time of fun, you know, traveling across the Atlantic, visiting temples, and just finding your way out of the body.
Which is that just about instant then, Jed? When you want to go somewhere like that and visit these places, you obviously you've got the sense of movement. And forgive me if I'm wrong, I haven't got even a grain of as much experience of this as you've got. But is it just about instant? You've got that, you know, you're traveling across an ocean, you know, you're traveling through the sky, but is it just about instant?
Well, bearing in mind that these weren't even self-induced experiences, I was just going to bed, and twice a week these things were happening to me, and I felt I was guided. And I felt when I returned to body, the information of who had guided me was like grains of sand through my hand, you know. But they were great experiences, and I think they were giving me the fun stuff before we moved on to the serious business. So yeah. You know, and I was just loving it, really. But I knew I had to know. I didn't even know what astral projection was at this time. Can you believe that? I didn't even know what an out-body experience was.
Yeah, I can believe it.
I've not read one book on this thing.
Yeah.
You know, I knew about ufology, but I hadn't heard of it. And someone mentioned it to me. So then I started reading the books, and I started learning to consciously induce the effects. So this took 6 months of lying still and not moving my body, and I'm going through all the stuff which Robert Monroe, you may have heard of.
Yeah, the Monroe Institute.
OB, but Bob Peterson was probably very influential with this, and William Buhlman. They're probably the three most influential OBEs. So I read all the books and started, and God knows what my wife thought. She must have thought, you know, what's going on here? So it took me 6 months of practice to induce. But prior to that, that's when the voices started coming through. So I was still having dream-related experiences. These ones were lucid experiences that I wasn't initiating. I'd go to bed, but maybe I was, because I was thinking about it. How much
did you retain from the dream-related?
Well, a lot of knowledge, because it was things like, we call them spontaneous experiences. So you've got willed astral projection, spontaneous and forced. So think of forced like a near-death experience, and spontaneous is when, for for example, I was shot out of the body like a cannonball, and then you'd levitate over the house, and then I'd go and do some stuff. And so I was traveling astrally, but I wasn't willfully projecting. I wasn't able to leave my body from the waking state, because I still didn't know. I thought, what's going, can I do this until you from a waking state, you produce the OBE. That's when there's a realism, and it goes beyond that, obviously, when the entities start coming through and you start seeing them next to the bed and stuff, but we'll come on to that. But yeah, it started to develop into maybe, so the fun stuff was over, and I found myself floating around the home, and you'd see someone in the home, so you wanted to leave the home, really.
Yeah.
And combined with reading the books on the subject, I started to build a proper OBE plan of what was going on.
Yeah,
but there was so much happening at that time.
Gerard, when you've left your body, and forgive me for butting in, but there's so much information here, and I know that you're moving through it quite methodically. But when you're moving around the room or within the home, and you presumably you can see your wife or loved ones, but are there other entities there?
Yes. At first, there wasn't for me, because there's always a worry because fear is the biggest obstacle within this thing, and that's something that Robert Monroe mentioned. Now, the first layer we have is what we call the etheric plane. It's sometimes called the real-time zone. That was by Robert Bruce who brought that terminology in. Now, a lot of people will think when they leave the body that they are actually within the physical realm, but I can assure you, you're not. Like things like lamps that you left on won't be on, or there'll be differences. Now, this etheric plane, which is the real-time zone, is what I've worked out. This is the first layer where spirits come. So say, for example, you're sat in your lounge and something's moved, or a drawer opens, or you might hear something, spirit activity. They will be in the real-time zone. So the spirits will have to lower their frequency to the real-time zone, the etheric plane, the first membrane that surrounds us, in order to make changes here. And I'll come on in a later episode. I've traveled like a spirit within the etheric plane, and I've been around people, and they can't see me.
Have they been physically aware of you?
No, they can't see me. I've tried, but you can affect the electrical things.
That's what I'm meaning.
So certain things you can do.
Yeah, you can actually alter or do things. Yeah, I get it.
But going back, the etheric plane is the first layer that you come to. But what I wanted to mention was, if you're not aware of this, you will think that you're in the physical realm, which I did at first too. So, and then you'll go to do things, and there'd be differences, but it doesn't change the realness of it. It's just different. It's hard for people to understand that.
And I really mean what I'm saying. I've got a little bit of a knowledge of it, but not a lot. Experience of it, should I say, but not a lot.
Yeah,
I can see what you're talking about. Things will look the same, but for me, everything looked so much more vibrant, so much more colourful, so much more real, if that makes sense. And is that what you experience?
It is, and the energy from our physical body sustains this subtle body. Just to note, there is two versions of. We have what we call separation. This came from Theosophy, from the Theosophical Society. So they invented the term astral projection, you see, in 1875. So let's just go back to saying astral projection is an occultist thing. The terminology is occultist. Whereas out-of-body experiences comes from parapsychology. So this is more scientific, but they're both the same thing.
I was just going to say, we're probably dealing with the same thing, though, are we?
But however, they're not in a way, because we have something called remote viewing and traveling clairvoyance. And traveling clairvoyance is a more older term for remote viewing. So you can travel out of the body as such by remote viewing, but you're not in your subtle body. You don't see hands and legs, and so there is a difference between
it's
the
almost
two.
Like, would people maybe mistakenly associate that as almost like the spirit, the soul's left the body?
Possibly, but we're, we're we're talking about, when we talk about OBEs, we're talking about, I like to think of it as theosophy directed it, and that is like a subtle body that's generated from our physical body. So going back to what you were saying, the energy of our physical body produces the astral double, which the consciousness transfers to, and it's made of subtle energy, which it's an energy that is available in spirit and in the physical. So when we transfer our consciousness to, depending, it can look very vibrant and bright, and but sometimes if your energy is off, it doesn't.
Okay.
So it depends on you. That's one of the things.
So, and I'm jumping all over the place. I'm trying to retain questions that I wanted to ask you earlier. You don't have to go into it as much detail with your family if you don't want to, but I'm keen to know when you started telling your immediate family that you were having these experiences.
Oh, around about 2018, 17, 18, because I was having the experience, and like I say, I'd be out the body and I'd see my wife sleeping next to me, and I'd be out traveling around. But probably around about the time I was consciously inducing them, of course, my wife knew, because I was lying there for an hour, not moving. I mean, sometimes she'd knock into me, and I'd say, "Oh, I was so close, you've ruined it again," And
Yeah,
it's not an easy thing to do if you want to. But let's just bear in mind that 90% of out of body experiences are not direct from the waking state. They're either via lucid dreaming, and you can transfer from the lucid dream, or they are indirect, which means you'll program the consciousness and the mind to do it when you're in a more relaxed state of sleep or whatever. But there's also a direct way of doing it when you wake up at like 5 in the morning or something, when your body's very relaxed, and that's still classed as direct because you're awake. So anything awake is direct. So that's the cheap way, really, to wake up at 5 in the morning and try. Because doing it when, in the afternoon or when you're going to bed, it's not an easy, because your body is trained to go to sleep and you put your head on the pillow. You've been training yourself all your life to put your head on the pillow and go to sleep. So to break that habit is not an easy thing. And I'm moving into the tools to develop this stuff, which maybe I'm jumping the gun, but
you're not. Honestly, I find this fascinating. And everybody listening to this, be aware that I'm quite happy just to keep this to myself, because Jed is an interesting man, and I'm so pleased, because I'm going to pick his brains now about. I want to know why. Then I'm a very light sleeper. I get up at 4:35 in the morning most mornings, and I don't go to bed sometimes. All the time, about midnight. So I go to bed 12 o'clock. I wake up and use bathroom at 3 o'clock. Now, when I go back to bed, and because you might be able to help me here and help other people, I slip in. I'm not asleep. Obviously, I've just woken up. I've walked to the bathroom. I've come back, and I get in bed. And when I close my eyes, that's when these, what I call visions, take place. This kind of lucid dream state occurs, and the light enters.
Yeah.
What are we dealing with there, Jed?
We're dealing with the hypnagogic phase, which is often called the in-between state. So there's an in-between state between wakefulness and sleepfulness, and finding that sweet spot is the hard point. I think a lot of, in Buddhism and Tibetan monks, they know about this in-between state. It's marginal, but like you say, you're getting back into bed. You've gone back into a REM cycle. So there is science behind this, involving your REM cycles and your circadian rhythms. But these are the springboards. So you've gone back to bed, and straight away you're going from a relaxed state, and you're hitting the in-between state. So your mind's still awake while your body's going to sleep. Have you had any paralysis come over you at that time?
I have, and I'm also. This might sound silly because this about you, isn't it? And I keep stressing that, but I'm also fully aware when I've travelled somewhere I think I'm traveling in my mind. I've only ever left the body knowingly once. I went straight through the wall, and I want to tell you about that at some point. But I'm only fully aware when I'm traveling places within this state that I am aware that I'm doing it. It's almost like there's another part of my mind that's aware I'm doing it.
Well, this is the thing now, because with lucid dreaming is a subjective experience. Now, I can train anyone to lucid dream. It's subjective, and dream characters can be manipulated, and they will react to you, and they'll act daft. They won't be able to answer complicated questions most of the time. But to transition to a higher dimension, you can do that from the lucid dream state. So it sounds to me like if you were conscious of your body, then you wasn't lucid dreaming. Because that's the difference between an out of body experience and a lucid dream. Within a lucid dream, you're not consciously aware that you're traveling in the subtle body, in the
I'm
astral
aware.
double.
And I'm also aware, Jed, and I'm saying this because I know there's going to be other people listening who are going to be fascinated and maybe have had similar experiences and not looked into it in any depth, which I haven't. I'm also aware. Sorry?
You're having an OBE, quite simply.
I'm also aware that if external thoughts from the real world start to infiltrate this thought process, it's gone. I've lost it.
That's the biggest thing. People are scared about not being able to go back to their body. It's the exact opposite. When you have your OBE plan, and I might have a plan to do something or visit someone, but you're on the clock, and I'm thinking, how long have I got? And this could be energy, mind. But as soon as something fearful happens, that can push you straight back into the body. But this comes with training. It sounds to me like you've got the link, so you just need to strengthen.
And
the
there's
training.
no fear there, Jed. There's definitely no fear there, and I don't mean I'm super brave because I'm not. But there's no fear there. It's the fact that I'm really frustrated because I'm not good enough to continue with this blank thought process where this has been allowed to happen, or it's happening. And
I mean, that can be helped by spirit, but I mean, without the help of spirit, we've obviously got. I like to think we do things on our own first, and any help is welcomed. Do you know what I mean? So what you really need is a copy of my book, and I'll send one out to you.
You did say that the other day, didn't you, Tom? Thank you. So let's jump back to childhood again, and so is there a gap from about 7 years old till when?
Probably till late 20s, because I was busy, you know, but I had quite a few experiences in the military. And
that's where I was going. Do you think life and maybe, I don't know, teenage years, teenage years, going to work, do you think that suppresses it because you've got so much going off? Do you need that space?
No. I mean, I think I was 18 when I had my first proper OBE. And I was in Dover, based in the barracks there, and I found myself in the ceiling, just knocking into the ceiling, you know, and I could see the corporal working through like an opening in the door at his desk, and then I was back in the body, and I went and splashed some water on my face, and I thought, I'm not going to tell anybody. It wasn't the British Army in the 80s wasn't the kind of place where you go around talking about these guys.
No.
But I was having them loads of them, and fatigue was a trigger for me there. But at the time I was interested in the paranormal. I had a book on palm reading, and I read this book on palm reading, and I was out doing. I mean, they were all girls. They used to palm read. I mean, obviously. Maybe I seen it as a way of meeting. I don't know, but anyway, we won't go there.
It kind of figures, doesn't it? Yeah.
I think what I'm trying to say, I must have had an interest in the paranormal, and I also had a book from an Alistair Crowley book about magic as well. So I must have had an interest, and I think I did, looking back. But so I had those experiences, so I knew it was always there.
So when you were in the military then, and you said, it's not the kind of thing you talk about, but I'm assuming did you make any close bonds with any? Well, you will have done within the military, and anybody else. Did they ever experience anything like that, or did you just never touch it?
No, I just never thought much about it. I had a few sleep paralysis incidents as well, like we all know about them, and a few OBEs, and I just put it down to fatigue. But like I say, go on.
Well, you did say the word fatigue earlier, Jed, and I was thinking to myself, are you more likely to experience something like this when you're very tired, or when
You
you've
can
not
do.
had as much food? Is there certain types of food that could aid
Well,
this
no, I
process?
don't think there's certain kinds of food. I mean, there is certain OBE authors from the past that I've used like techniques about thirst and fatigue, but for me, it doesn't really, I would say like any books on lucid dreaming will tell you to go to bed early, get more REM cycles in, and don't eat too late, and don't watch too much TV. These are all just basic things about, because you really need to become a good sleeper with this. You need to get as much sleep as you can, enjoy your naps, and meditation, be more relaxed, all those things about inducing these experiences. I'm going to digress here, but I
Yep,
actually
please
joined
do.
a psychic development group to get more meditation, and so, but we'll come on to that later. But yeah, so you need to develop yourself, and but there's no doubt about, and I'm going to come on to this soon. You do all these things and you'll have lucid dreaming, something you can quite easily train yourself to do. It may take a couple of months, there's
Mm.
certain tricks, but bringing spirit in to guide you, and that's something I can't guarantee, but I believe that we do all have what I call a guardian, a
Mm.
daemon entity, an entity that is highly invested in us, in the essence of us. And I believe if you do the right things, you can encourage this entity to give you more, because they're only allowed to give us so much, because that's why we're here on this journey. But they will, if you're in resonance with this entity, then you will be given more. And
Is
that's
this
something that,
almost what
yeah,
unknowingly people say? We'll
yeah.
ask the universe. Do you think they're asking these unknown others for
Mm.
assistance and guidance, or is it nothing to do with that?
Well, the others, I mean, they've told me that they've told me quite a lot actually, but they've told me that a lot of the experiences I have are directed by the same being. So they give you the experiences to develop, to evolve. But there's probably about 6 guides that I work with, or I have worked with, on various astral journeys. Um, one of them's called the teacher, and she delivers lessons on what she did do, and she used to wear a veil. And I'd love to show you some pictures, but I don't know how to.
I was just going to say to you, what
well,
do they look like, these
well,
beings?
we can go through that maybe on the next episode. Different
Well,
entities on that.
you send me the images,
Okay.
Jed. Next time we do one, I'll load
Yeah.
them up on here and I'll just
Yeah.
put them up.
And of course, for anyone who's interested, there's a lot of them on my website, gerardpratt.com. So you're welcome to go and have a look on the gallery. And there's a lot of entities that have. So without jumping the gun, there's a lot of extraterrestrial entities
Are
as
these
well.
sketches that you've done then based on
I
your?
had a spirit drawer draw some sketches for the book, and she's drawn about, Stacey Sparks has drawn about 7 or 8 images in the book. There's only one AI image in the book, but I've put some more AI on the website, but I didn't really want to use that for the book, you see. But there's probably about 10 entities on my website that I describe.
Do they share a likeness with humans, with the human form?
Mostly, there was one of the, going back to 2018 when this stuff first started developing, one of the first entities I seen, who I call Azrael. He's been seen by other people. He was like an octopus with eyes all over his tentacles. Him, I say he, I felt it was a male entity. And he was trying to deter me, to scare me, to put me back in the body, like, to develop fear. Because this is something the Guardian tends to do. And people call this the dweller of the threshold. Now, you may have heard that term before, or the guardian of the threshold. See, this higher being doesn't really want you traveling. He wants, he's scared. There's a fear. He wants you to stay within the body and to develop. But they will assist you once you get over.
So is the reason then that these higher beings don't want you to leave the body, is it because of the lack of knowledge? It's that you might talk about things that you've got no knowledge of, and that's why you've got to develop?
I think, well, it's like when people take psychedelics, isn't it? It's like they're jumping the gun a bit. They're gate crashing the party effectively. It's not something that you can just it's spiritually guided. Astral projection, being an occultist, the spiritual thing, is spiritually guided by your higher beings, as part of your evolutionary process. So to bung a load of DMT, whatever I don't even, I've never took anything, so I wouldn't know. But
Well, ayahuasca, the vine of the dead, they call it, don't they?
yeah,
And
I mean,
I've never used it, but
someone said to me, that could ruin your development
mm,
by taking that stuff, because I was getting plenty of experiences anyway.
what I find fascinating, Jed, about that
Mm,
substance. I mean, I
mm,
like my substance is beer. I like beer.
yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I don't even smoke cigarettes, but the people that use it claim to see angelic beings,
Mm.
alien type beings, and it's usually a good experience. Like you've just said, it's jumping the gun. Do you see that as some kind of people shouldn't be doing that? You want them to do it
I
the way that
don't.
you've done it?
I would think so, but you know what? I'm no expert on that, on those substances. But
No,
because I was having the experiences anyway, I didn't see the point in taking
absolutely.
stuff, and so I've never took anything.
No.
So I suppose that's something with me saying, because people at home may be saying, "Well, what's this guy being taken?"
Well,
But I
what would
haven't
you?
took anything.
Well, in no way do I mean what I'm saying, but I'm going to throw the question out because people at home would say, "What would you say to people then that said, well, I think Jed and Paul, because he's alluding to having experienced something like this, even if only
Yeah,
once, I think they're having a psychotic episode."
yeah,
What would you say? Because we've no proof of anything you're saying. I've written the book Night People about my experiences in
yeah, yeah,
childhood.
yeah, yeah,
I've no
absolutely.
proof of it, not an ounce.
Well, one of my first experiences were when the first I found myself in a supermarket. But if it was it was at the Arndale Centre in Manchester.
Right.
So it was very vivid, this experience. And there was a man with a knife, and I tried to tackle him. And this is a precognitive dream, by the way. He me 3 times, and that's when I heard the first voice, and the voice said Arndale Centre. They kept repeating Arndale Centre, and it was 2 weeks later. Oh, it flashed in front of me, Arndale Centre. Now,
Mm.
2 weeks later, I was sat watching the news, and there he was on the telly in the Arndale Centre. So this is late 2018. And that's when I thought, well, that was the first precognitive thing that had happened. So I knew there was something psychic going on
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
And then when the house, I mean, I call this in chapter 4, I think, or 5, the infestation. The house became infested with spirits, and my wife was seeing them, or spirits, disembodied spirits walking around, voices, and
Your property became infested with spirit.
exactly, yeah,
And
yeah.
so was Jed the conduit for this? You've got to have been.
I think so. But my wife might say her mother died, but she was turning up in the house as well. So it it was and it wasn't just that, there was experiences where I'd be told and given information that was factual by the spirits. So of course what we'll move into soon is, you know, um these guardians introduced themselves to
Yeah.
me in the afternoon. So I was fully awake when the first introductions came.
Can we just stay with the
Yeah.
house?
Okay.
Because there's piles of information here, and it's hard to sort of digest it. Normally, I'd have had a list of questions that I'd have just been looking down and tell us about this. But as you know, we've
Yeah.
we've done this on the hoof, so to speak, and it's
Yeah.
great because your conversation hasn't stopped flowing. But the house became infested with spirits. How
Exactly.
did that make your immediate family feel? Because were things moving in the house, as
Well,
like objects moving about, or disembodied voices? What was happening?
I don't. There was nothing. I don't think it was anything negative. But I
Yeah,
found that when I was returning to body, I might get a tap in the face, and I could see spirits hanging around me. It's like I was a conduit to spirits.
yeah,
They knew, or maybe they was allowed, because spirits, they're like lawyers. They know what they can get away with and they know what they're allowed to do. So you have to invite these energies. Now you may do this willingly or
mm,
unwillingly, but as an astral traveler, I was full in. I was very willing, very open. and I'm still very open now. So yeah, my wife's seen spirits in the home. She's seen things floating past her, and it's all in the book in the
Yeah,
infestation chapter.
absolutely.
My daughter had disembodied voices, uh, touches on the back. I was woken by spirits poking me in the back, and you'd see them dash out of the room. It was relentless. Now maybe people might say, well, I wasn't protecting very well. Maybe I wasn't. I don't know. I was learning on the hoof. I was there's so much happening. But what happened in the afternoon, I had a voice call my name. This is 2018. He said, Gerard. And I said, and as a train driver and a professional worker, I said to Margaret, listen, someone's just called my name here, I tell Margaret, she's runs throughout the book. She's been a good sport with this, Margaret, really. But she is involved.
Yeah.
And so my name was called, and then the next day the voice said, you and Margaret were matched. So again, said Margaret, I said, you're never gonna guess what you've just. She said, we're matched. So this is in the afternoon, I'm getting these messages. So this continued. Then I started getting messages like, we need your help. This is important. And then I was sat in the chair and I was overwhelmed by this entity. And he showed me the earth spinning in a projection. And he said to me, do not fear death. He said, it's merely a transition from this body to the next. He said, your life to me is about 2 weeks long. He said, so that's when I started thinking that he's living through me. This entity's got a stake in me. Well, he showed me what's in his mind and what is the knowledge. He was an ancient entity, that's what I can say. And he explained that the transition would be like, imagine you're on holiday and you meet loads of new friends, and then you say goodbye at the airport and you go home. That was what he explained to me.
That is what close down. That is what death is about. Yeah, I get it.
That's what he said. Yeah. So you'll be going home. Do not fear death. Those are the words that were rattled right through me. And that was the first introduction to this entity.
Did you feel emotional?
Of course. Of course. I was feeling emotional all the time. But that was the first time he introduced himself to me. So there was the name calling, telling him, he told me what his name is, but it's Arabata. So my name is Arabata. He said, you and Margaret were matched prior to this lifetime. And then he came through and he showed me what was in his mind and to not fear death. So that was in 2018. Yeah.
Does it? I don't mean worry you, because everything you're talking about here, Jed, sounds really positive. But what do you think then that you and Margaret were matched? So I'm my wife Mary, our children. Do you think everything then is planned for us from zero to exiting this life?
Well, they've told me, they said the future is determined by the possibilities and the probabilities that each of us embody. So I think in a way that we can change things, but they know this was in the spirit group, this experience, but that's what they showed me. He told me he was a keeper, this entity, and that's what he told me about the future. So you can change things, but they know from our possibilities that we embody and the probabilities, they work it all out from there.
It's absolutely fascinating. And the other realm then, Jed, which these environments that you've traveled, do you get a sense of smell? Do you get a sense of touch?
Well, we're talking about higher and lower realms, and I've traveled both. I have been quite partial to the lower astral, but predominantly the higher planes and the guidance from these different entities. Now, the book is called Guardians of Light and Shadow, the Astral Traveller, Guardians of Light and Shadow.
Yeah, we will put a link to that in.
No, but what I'm saying is there's light and there's dark here, as there is in all of us. But the shadow elements, and sometimes you won't know who they are, but I suppose at the end of the book, I get certain offers made, shall we say, financial offers. But you wonder who the light and who the dark is, because maybe we'll go through this next time, but there's certain entities. So the first entity who introduced himself, Arabata, is a hooded being. And he is in a group of 3 hooded beings. and I've communicated with all three. But so that was 2018. It does get quite complex because I was so open to it and traveling, that's when a lot of the extraterrestrial stuff started popping in.
Which we've not even touched on, have we?
I
know. But you've just opened another door for me. This door that you've opened might be one that we close literally instantly with your next answer to this question.
Okay.
So you've got the light and the dark, and you get propositions, and we're going to get to yours in a future live stream or episode. And what my thoughts are, without naming any kind of superstars, celebrities, do you think they get these propositions?
Well, I mean, I have had more recent experiences with these offers, and this never happened for the first couple of years. There was one particular entity who helped me and showed me certain techniques for leaving the body. When we talk about the shadow, there are entities, supernatural entities, and that have an influence on human affairs, shall we say. Yes, it does exist. They are there. But I like to think predominantly it's a battle between light and dark. They're trying to influence. I mean, do you not wonder why the world has always been in a state of war and disharmony? Chaos. It's always been there, hasn't it? Why have we not worked it out in all these thousands of years? So there is dark supernatural entities that have influence.
And what are look at it. Well, I mean, we must be only species in the world. We're supposed to be the most intelligent, as they're supposed to be, and we fire rockets up at each other. Do you know what I mean? We blow each other up.
Yeah.
You said that you got potentially offered wealth. Obviously, for something, there'll be a price to pay. Maybe would there? I don't know. Is there a price to pay for?
Well, this was in 2023 when I found myself in a luxury villa. I was sat there, and I didn't even induce this experience, because that's how it happens. See, the more you start having OBE, sometimes I called it before the indirect OBE. So you haven't even initiated it. There's many times you just find yourself out the body and say, "Oh, thanks for that." Here we go. But on this occasion, I did find myself in a luxury villa, and the pool was flowing and all the luxuries. And a particular guide I work with called Stuart, who was steeped in biblical law. This particular guide. And he works with Catherine. Now, Catherine is she's trying to dress in like a 1940s style outfit, but they work together. But on this occasion, Stuart said to me, he says, do you want all this? And I said, well, no, because I put kids through scholarship programs in Africa and Liberia, where I used to live. And I said, I'd rather you put a load of kids through their education, through a scholarship, than give me this. What do I want? I'm okay. I've got everything I need. And he just looked at me, and I thought, what's all this? Where's all this going? Do
you think it was like you were being offered temptation? Do you think you were genuinely trying to deceive you? Oh, it was a test. That's where we're going. Yeah, I get it.
Well, because at the end of the one before the final chapter, I have a series of tests that they put me through. There's a demon I had to get rid of. Then there was advancement, a sexual advancement by female spirits to try and seduce you. And I have been seduced. I mean, we can go into succubus and incubus another time, but this particular female spirit tried to refuse the temptation. So I passed all these tests, but we can discuss that. But
I know we keep jumping back to childhood, but what were the apocalyptic visions? Did you see other nations at war, or did you see famine?
Okay. What? It was a burnt out earth, the same vision all the time. The landscape was burnt. I remember seeing a telegraph pole on its side burnt. So it was trees charred, burnt. And it was a thought that they've finally gone and done it. Like, there's no humans left. That was the intent. I know that sounds really negative, and I'm not saying that's going to happen or anything. No. Because let's just touch on the subject. Maybe they're just trying to get your attention about the planet and about the state of the planet. So I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I think it was John Mack, was it, that was trying to say that, or was it Bud Hopkins? I'm trying to think now. And I think it was John Mack that was trying to get the minds of young, these higher evolved entities want to make you think about the planet and
The
that
future,
kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's more what it was, to get you, because the craft experience came after. So let's get your attention, so they flood you with these visions and then show you the craft. But I could be wrong about that, Paul.
No, no.
I'm surmising.
These are your opinions, and these
And
memories
that's
that
what
have
it is.
survived. And do you think there'll be some people that maybe listen to this and go, yeah, but why Jed?
Me?
Why Paul Sinclair? Why has he had these experiences? Mine weren't very nice, I'll be honest with you, but why Jed? Well,
Yeah.
Do you think, this is my take on it, these higher beings maybe don't see Jed or anybody experiencing this as any lesser being than somebody with just got pockets full of money and sort of a higher elevation within society?
Okay, I can answer that. Within the spirit circle that I sit in, the first time I met the mediums in the group, they said to me in trance, they said an entity or a being has agreed to share with you the ancient knowledge. So it was agreed before this lifetime. Now, why me? I mean, so having money or status or wealth, it has got no impact.
Carries no weight.
No, not at all. And they've told me certain things like this. What I'm doing now, sharing this knowledge and the book, is something that they wanted me to do. I understand now. This is part of the
Those
job.
were the ingredients from childhood to get to this point.
Yes, yeah. And they've told me, I was told to write of your experiences. There are those that live in fear. To help those who live in fear to diminish that fear. Like I said before, it's the light versus the dark. So I'm very much with the light, but obviously I give respect to the dark, because it's you don't want to be that person that goes around you've got to just show the respect and say no thank you, or that's how it works.
Do you think well, I'm not, I don't know, I can't read your mind, but do you think that it is the mindset that you go into that determines the type of being that you interact with on the other side?
Yeah, I mean, I think our mind creates a lot of, but they can only use what's in our mind, you see. So I think, like when I sit in the spirit group, like the symbology, and we'll come on to that, but the symbology that I receive in my mind, they can only use what's in our mind. That's what they've told me. That's what I understand. So the visions that I've had, like I said, when the entity came through and he showed me the earth spinning, and he said, about how long our lifespans and things are. They have to use what's in our mind. So,
but in childhood, they planted things in your mind.
Yeah, but where those images came from, I'm not sure. But I think so. Maybe
Were they futuristic images? Do you believe now, Jed, or do you just think that these were just images of what could be?
I hope they're not futuristic images, because one thing I do know is that once I started attending the spirit circle, I started to see past, present, and future of those mainly sat near me, and I've had a precognitive.
You must be reading my mind. I was going to say, the next question was, have you seen into the future?
Yes.
And are there certain things you can't talk about?
Well, no, I don't. I only marginally, I get told certain things, and when you're going into psychic development, I have seen a lot within the group, and I've got a list of things, really, Well, let me just share the first experience when I attended the spirit circle, which was in 2021, by the way. But I'll tell you more about that. But this is a fascinating thing. The first time I attended the group, one of the mediums said to me, he said, "There's a black dog that came into the meditation and sat by your feet for the whole meditation." I thought, what's he talking about? Do you know what I mean? And the next day I was driving the train to Yorkshire, up your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
And I approached the crossing and I I seen the black dog.
Right.
And the gate was open, and I hadn't hit a dog for 20 years. and it hit this black dog, and we won't go into the details, but
No,
and I
but
thought this is a serious business, this psychic ability. But little did I know that I'd be dishing out the messages not long later. But what I wanted to say is the astral projection is an automatic sort of, the psychic abilities will flow much better if you just learn to do the traveling. In order to get out the body and be in resonance with the energy body, you will develop psychic abilities because your flow is in resonance with your higher being.
It's absolutely fascinating and a breath of fresh air. You know, here at Truth Proof and on Last Transmission that I do with Chris Turner, you kind of talk, you stay in your own lane. You talk about what I don't know. I don't mean we're experts because we're not, but you talk about what you know and what you can relate to.
Yeah,
that's why that's why I was so enthusiastic when you started talking about these outer body experiences, because I definitely know I've had one, just one. The others, you surprised me when you said you're actually leaving your body, or you believe that's what's happening, because I'm aware of it. But the one that I had, my body felt like a perfect clock. So everything was just running perfectly, and it's only probably 18 months ago, if that, and my body felt like it were rocking. And I just went feet first, straight out of my body and through the wall.
And the rock and swaying, like the hammock technique, is one of the motion techniques. But yeah, you can swing yourself out of the body, but you probably felt great out of the body, didn't you?
It
You
was
probably
just
felt
amazing. It were amazing, and I spent months and months and months, but I guess my problem were I'm probably trying too hard. It never happened. I couldn't replicate it. And I wanted to.
But you know, and I spoke before about the infestation chapter around the home. So when all this was going on, you know, I was traveling and I was having some amazing experiences, which we can get into. But you know, there was a lot going on in the home at the same time. So some people were getting a bit concerned.
Actually, in your actual home life?
Yeah, like we spoke before about the apparitions and the voices, and I mean, then I joined the spirit group, which was a bit of guidance towards how to protect yourself, that kind of thing. But I mean, I'll give you something here. In the spirit group, I've mentioned the black dog, but I remember asking for voices because we wanted what we call the direct, the independent direct voice. So this is voices in the air. Which they have at the group. Well, they have had in the past.
Actual audible to everybody in the group.
Yeah. So I was asking for these voices, and when I got home, Margaret said to me, "I've just had voices in the air, Latin or Hebrew." So we have had independent direct voice in the home. Like for example, one night me and Margaret were laying in bed, and we heard a male speaking downstairs. You know, and she's added the voices. So there's been a bit of voices going on as well.
How about with electronic items such as the phone? Can they work through that? And I don't mean call you up, but do you hear voices that aren't between yourself and the person you're talking to?
No, we're not so much devices, but you just hear them in the air.
Yeah,
they're just so they will be in the ethereal because you attract. I think because they think it's allowed, because you're traveling to them, they're okay to come to you. You're allowing it. You're opening it up. You open portals.
And there's an awareness then, isn't there, Jed? Because where we do a lot of this research, I don't know what you know about what I'm about, but we're going to these cliff tops where it's very active with all sorts of things. We hear voices, not just me. We all hear voices. And an example, I were up there with Pete last year. There's a few of us up there, but me and him are about 4 foot apart. And in between us all, between me and Pete, a voice went, "Paul." And Pete's Broad Yorkshire, Barnsley lad, and he went, "Did they hear that?" and I went, "Yeah." He says, "It said the name," and it did. It said my name.
Well, it's very real. But was you hearing it clairaudiently, or was it in the physical? This is the thing, because
yeah, you make a good point. I think we heard it in the physical.
If you've both heard it, it was probably in the physical. But they can do that, you know. And I mean, I've not been traveling very well lately because doing the books can be quite stressful and all that. But if they want to come through, they can come through. All right, don't worry about that. But they know who we all are, and they know what we all stand for. And if they want to get in touch, they will.
And it's quite frightening, isn't it? And you know, I mean, I don't mean we're all perfect, but none of us are perfect. So they see everything that we're doing and
They
everything that
do, but they obey certain rules. I mean, I've been traveling out the body, and I've been told I've been punished by because I mean I've been, you know, going around people's homes and doing things maybe I shouldn't have done. Nothing too bad, but just
No, I get it. Yeah,
you know, um, there's certain things you shouldn't be doing, like invading people's bodies and things. You know, there's a certain ethics within
yeah.
this, and your guides won't be happy, and they've stopped me doing things, and aggression as well. I mean, there's been times when, on occasion, I've acted slightly aggressively, and they've put me right because they won't stand for that.
No,
So yeah, but going round and doing things, there is negative spirits that will do things, but generally speaking, if you ask them to leave, they're supposed to do that. They don't have free will like we do.
I see. I see. So family members that are fully aware that you're doing this, have any of them ever said to you, we don't have to say your wife, your children, anybody,
Yeah,
any
yeah,
close
yeah.
friends said, help me do this? And have they managed to attain it?
No, they don't want. No, my wife is very clairvoyant, Margaret, but she's not that interested.
So, Jed, we've sort of covered
Yeah.
childhood, but not in massive detail. I'm sure we will revisit it over these episodes. And we've got to, is it up to 2018? Is that where we've gone?
Yeah, around about then, 2018-19, when the entities first introduced themselves. So we had the honeymoon period where I was having all the good fun stuff, flying around across the Atlantic, seeing a lot of things. And then they started to introduce by name and came through and showed me the separation, the distance between life and death. And I didn't really know they had a job for me, a mission where I was getting, this is important, we need your help. But they showed me, I started to get an idea because looking through the eyes of this is going to sound really weird, a bull,
Right.
and the bull was getting slaughtered in a bull ring, and I could feel everything that was going on with
They
this
wanted you
animal.
to know that fear and trauma.
Yes, well said. But then the voice said, "Mindless humans."
Yeah, I could imagine. Yeah, I got a cold shiver just thinking about it. Then,
That's what the voice said, Paul.
Mm.
And I thought that's when I started to get an inkling where this was going to go,
Mm.
because I started thinking, is this something? I know it's supernatural. Is
That's
this
just trauma for
extraterrestrial?
pleasure, and they're showing you the
Yeah.
mindless, the senselessness of it. Yeah.
I think like with when I got the early planet visions, that's when I thought I'm dealing with entities, certainly supernatural. Are they extraterrestrial, interdimensional? They're invested with humanity and with the Earth, but I didn't know at that point where we were going to go with this. And the experiences came on thick and fast. Like I say, the family, I think they quite enjoyed it, to be quite honest, because my
Yeah.
daughter, she's quite open to this stuff. She was scared a few times, and to be honest, Paul, I was.
I should imagine. Yeah.
I was terrified of ghosts as a child. I don't know why, but around about that time, I knew they were trying to deal with my fear then.
Yeah.
And there was one time I was doing these meditations, which were called sitting with spirit to feel closer to spirit. And I remember that I was sat in like a police interview room. I don't need to just put my head on the pillow. This is what happens.
Yeah.
And they said, place your hands on the table. A spirit will be along shortly to hold your hands. And anyway, it went dark. And I said, stuff this, I'm off. And I back in the body, you know, like,
Yeah.
and that's how it was around about that time. But then I was having, you know, a lot of indirect experiences where I'd find myself floating out of the body, and then I'd go, because I'd induced the will projection came on around about that time. So yeah.
Well, Jed, it's honestly, this hour has just flown. I've had to do nothing. I've enthused about things because I've not got a lot of knowledge of that I've maybe touched on but not realised. So it's a learning curve for myself, and I'm looking forward to episode number 2.
I just want to say, you did say before about proof. Now, I have took 2 polygraph tests, and they're on my website. So if anyone wants to go and have a look at them, feel free. Now, I'm not saying the polygraph proves that these experiences were fully objective, but what it will prove is that, you know, I'm telling you the truth as I received these experiences. So for me, I know they were obviously subjective, and for me they were very objective. But you know, what does it prove? It proves that I and being 100% genuine and honest to everyone who's watching.
To the best of your knowledge and the things that have happened to you, and
exactly.
You've been truthful. And that is absolutely brilliant. And I look forward to speaking with you again soon, if that's possible.
Absolutely, yeah.
Jed,
We'll do
thank
that,
you.
Paul. Thanks, Paul,
Thank you.
and thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks.